Hello, in previous video I quickly mentioned something called input system, and I feel it's important for me to elaborate on it. So Unity's input system is something relatively new that allows cross-platform input with ease that's unparalleled with whatever was available previously, in most cases. Okay, first we need to set up control. I already have it here. Create a... It was right in front of me a moment ago. Input actions, there you go. Right? I will not use this one because I already have it here. So I'm opening my control here, and I can dock it nicely because I will be using it later, and it doesn't get in the way. We do action maps here. Action maps are added this way. For example, this one will be for menu. Whenever the player is in the menu, we don't want WASD to do things. We want mouse click to react with buttons and stuff like that, right? We will worry about it later. Right now we're interested only in what player does. So instead of what keys should be pressed, think of what player does. Player moves left, right with WASD. See, I'm making this mistake. I'm thinking keys. Because if we're building mobile platform, there will probably be some sort of on-screen buttons where you press and they have to be an equivalent of WASD, right? Or somebody plugs in a pad or tries to play with a mouse. I don't know. Player moves forward, backward, and sideways. There should be some sort of fire button. Maybe there should be some sort of interact button. Maybe start. We can think about it in a moment. So here I have only steer set up. Oh, how did I come about the name steer? You cannot like that. So right now I'll the fire action. And this is a button. What sort of interactions? I think I'm interested only in press. Yeah, let's select press. Now the interesting thing about this input system is whenever you press a button, it registers 3 inputs: press, sustain, and release. Sometimes you'll be interested only how long, for example, drag and drop lasts, right? So you will count only the sustains, and on release you will actually drop the object. So that's what's important. Okay, so press only. Now I want to bind it to something, and I want to bind it to space. The final frontier, there we go. Okay, so whatever I call the fire here, the action of fire, reacts to a button. On press only, and the button is space. Now it gets a bit trickier with WASD, because it's not really a button, it's a vector too. So there's x-axis and y-axis. So instead of a button, I just chose value here. I don't think we'll use pass-through, we'll see. And there's vector 2. You could add one more axis here. You could probably try to use touchpad. I don't know, we can experiment with it later. And here WASD is 2 vector, right? Digital normalized means it's either 0 or 1. And it makes sense with keyboard that's digital, not analog. And here, there you go, composite. It's even politely giving us directions that are expected in WASD or in any 2-axis system. Alright, so we have these set up. Now remember the word steer and fire. Most important thing, don't forget to save the asset. Once this is set up, we set up something called event system. UI event system here. And then the control has to be dragged here. Drag this fella here, from here to this option, right? Anything else that I should check here? No, I think we're right. Now, how do we read steer and fire? Well, we add player input. So here I added player input, just like any other component, player input. I know there's plenty to add, plenty of moving pieces, but once you've set it up, it just works. Oh, there's nothing here, because there's player here. See, this action map called player is accessible here, through here. So if I had multiple action maps, I would have multiple positions like that. Alright. So our steer and fire appeared here. And I have player movement script somewhere here. Let's have a look at it. That, well, I could call it anything. I could call it anything. The important part is that I remember what I called it. And here, yes, on steer, because to me it's logical. Let's remember this public method. It has to be public, of course, so I can access it here. And I can choose first I should choose which object. So I just dragged player into, well, itself, or player movement script from here, if I like. And then select my public method from player movement. It appears here because it's public, right? I have selected it. I could probably pass some variables here normally, but in this event they are all nicely packaged for us in this context. This val contains everything we need. So if I want that vector to red, I have to do it like this. If I wanted a button red, whether it's pressed or not, that would be also one of those properties of val. Okay, so that's pretty much it when it comes to how to set up input system. If I wanted to add another public method on fire, I would go public void on fire, and I'll just copy and paste this. There we go, too much typing. And here, right. I don't quite remember what properties val has, so I'll just do like this. If val dot, alright, that's handy. Started. If it starts, well, that started. If it persists, it will be performed. I would need to Google that. But right now we just need started, right? When the button is pressed, it fires. If val.start, I know that we marked it in, no, not here, in here, that press only, but I want to make sure, because I may change my mind later on and then forget about it. Okay, if val started, we would instantiate a bullet, projectile of some sort. I don't have it here. Probably fire shouldn't really be in movement script. It should be somewhere separate. Serialize field GameObject, which will be added later. Projectile. Projectile. There you go. Right. Do we need the public? Nobody else uses it? No. Good. I should probably make an array or a list for flying projectiles, but right now it will be just private transform, and let's call it projectile. That's projectile, and this is projectile prefab. How elegant. So we'll instantiate, well, the object, of course. But you know what? I think we can give it some. Yeah, we'll need to parent. Do we need to parent it to our current transform? No. But we definitely want to make sure it's instantiated in the spot where our parent is. Alright, yes, that's what we want. So instantiate this fella, transform, well, we don't really want the transform, we want the position of the transform, like so, and rotation. Quaternion identity, right? Okay. Oh yes, and this is our projectile. This is the actual projectile. Why am I keeping it here in a separate variable? Because I want to... Oh, it's a GameObject. Because I want to do stuff to it. For example, I want to check its collisions. I want to put it in a list, etc. I want to count how many bullets were fired. Yes, GameObject. GameObject. Wunderbar. Okay, jesteśmy. This is done. It should instantiate projector. Projector should have its own script. Projectile movement. Whenever it's spawned, it should start moving, well, in the direction. in its z-axis, I guess. Or y in 2D world. You know what? Perhaps we should actually test it. Let's save it. Our script should now have, yes, projectile prefab. Let's make a quick prefab. That will not be very elegant. 3D object, sphere, capsule. Yeah. I should probably make it a 2D object. Okay, capsule, I'll call you like so. Reset the transform so it's in 0, 0, 0. We probably don't need it that big. 0.3, 0.3. Oh, that's not the one. No. 0.3. There we go. And rotate it in the x-axis by 90. Okay, I can see that I'll need to propel it later on in z-axis. I'll need to give it a script that propels it in z-axis. Should the projectile start in the middle of the plane? I'm anxious that its collider could trigger the collision in the plane and it would annoy us later. So perhaps it's starting... Oh, you know what? No. We'll deal with it later. Okay, projectile is here. Let's make it a prefab. I really should have a folder for it. But for the purpose of the tutorial, it's perfectly fine to set a bad example. Projectile prefab goes here. Okay, now if we hit space, it should instantiate the projectile prefab. Let's play. First of all, AD works, yes. WS doesn't. Okay, watch out, pressing space in 3, 2, 1, and... Oh. Interesting. Oh, I know why. This was planned. Player. I did not plug this in. Almost as if I actually planned it as an educational scenario here. Okay, player movement on fire. There we go. Let's save it. Let's play. And space. Nice. Oh, okay, why does it... Let me just drag the Z. I see. Rigid body, collider, doesn't like this fella here. I wonder why. Well, I click this prefab. Of course it has a capsule collider. And you know what? It doesn't need to collide with stuff. It just needs to trigger a collision. I just wanted to talk about input system. Really. Okay, there it is. And it flies... Wait a minute. Is it... It is vertical. Alright, while we're at it, let's have a conversation about Unity's approach to rotate. Whenever we transport objects from Blender into Unity, this problem will be very common. I know there are people that figure it out and they automatically apply apply changes to the transforms so they're properly rotated. In this case, and I should probably unpack it. Sorry, lost plot. I was ranting about something probably, and here, this fella here has rotation. This one doesn't. So when I apply the plane's rotation, which was -90, that's weird. Please tell me player doesn't. But player doesn't have rotation. I am applying player's rotation, not the models that's somewhere in the child hierarchy. Alright, so this fellow is the projectile right here. Drag. Remove. You'll say, but Michael, this one doesn't have a collider. That's true. The empty doesn't have a collider. The child has a collider. So we may run into a problem. I'll just grab this collider and slap it onto the parent. Might just as well. Alright, play. There it goes, and space. Beautiful. and it's actually the same height as the plane. I am very tempted to make a script that moves it. This would be so easy. But you know what? It's for another day. So thanks for watching, and I hope this was informative. Take care.